Okay, welcome to another edition of the On Point podcast, as I have been calling it for a while now. Sorry for the probably 10 good seconds of silence there. I was waiting for the stream page to load so that I didn't get any echo, but apparently it took its sweet time to load up before I could mute it. So unfortunately today, I do have a few topics, but unfortunately we're not going to have any visual representation of said topics, simply due to the fact that OBS is being an asshole in regards to displaying Firefox. I decided to switch from Chrome, and then I went to Opera, and I only stayed with that a few days because it was eating up more memory than Chrome. Now, it's not a big deal. I have a pretty decent amount of RAM, but I would rather have as little memory usage as possible, so I switched over to Firefox, and that has been better for me. I haven't used Firefox in, 7 years, 8 years. It's a little different than what I remember, but it seems to be working well so far. The only issue I've had so far is that I can't seem to get it to display with OBS, so for now, until I figure out a way to work around that, we'll have to just do with an audio podcast, like the good old days before YouTube streaming was a thing. So we're taking a step back in time. I don't know how many people really care about that. I don't know how many people listen into the show and, watch the screen at the same time. Usually when I'm listening to a stream, I'll just have the tab open in the background and do other things. I know a lot of people also say they do that, but some of you like visual representation, and since that is lacking in this episode, I do apologize for that, but we'll eventually work it out. I'm considering getting a secondary browser just to be able to use it in OBS, but that kind of defeats the purpose of why I downloaded Firefox. But enough about that, since that is not really here or there in regards to the show today itself. Decided to do a bit of an early show, so not really expecting much in a way of viewership, just because I know people out there have lives on Saturday morning/afternoon, unlike certain individuals that shall go unnamed. So, most of you have heard of the whole, what's going around as the Thaudit, which is basically where people had, it was one guy that started it, but it spread around, and basically what happened was people were reporting so-called sex workers who had premium Snapchats, basically selling photos of themselves. Hey, good morning. And reporting them to the IRS for, not paying taxes. Now, whether or not they actually did pay their taxes or not remains to be seen, but judging from the reactions of some of these people, I almost want to say that there might be just a little bit of guilt there, because while it's probably an inconvenience to be audited by the IRS, if you haven't done anything wrong, you probably have nothing to worry about, or so you would think. So, to me, people flipping out over this and treating it like it's the worst possible thing ever really just, it almost implies guilt to me. And if they're not guilty, they are making themselves look very guilty. Now, of course, this is being painted as some sort of hate movement against all women, which is a very interesting perspective to me, because I love how these people do this. Because from my view, it seems like they're conflating the so-called sex workers with all women. So it's like, do you really think that those types of people are representative of the attitudes of all women? Because I've come across plenty of women who have enough self-respect not to sell their body on the internet, and they may not be very vocal about it openly, but they certainly don't think very much of the people that take part in that. Now, look, people are obviously free to do what they want, and of course, the market for these things is going to dictate whether or not it exists. But that doesn't mean I have to respect it. That doesn't mean we have to agree with it. That doesn't mean it has to be propped up as something that requires defense and should be highly respected in society. And that's the weird thing about these people. They always want to take that thing that they believe has a stigma and remove it so that it can be seen as respectable. The only problem with that is that sometimes things have a stigma associated with it because of a reason, a specific reason. And that reason is, regardless of all of this, free love, I can do what I want with my sexuality type attitudes, at its core, intimacy is supposed to be, or is for many people, a special thing that they share with one very specific person. You don't see a lot of that attitude promoted in the media or society in general these days, and you're kind of looked at as you are backwards or, too traditional, if such is your viewpoint. And they almost try to guilt people into sort of living a lifestyle that I think, personally, you can disagree, sort of goes against people's emotional well-being. Because for all of the people out there that seem to be into this hookup culture type stuff and whatnot, they don't seem very happy. And it seems as though they don't realize the reason for that may be because they're making choices that aren't very good for themselves. You can't tell me it doesn't affect you in some way mentally to basically go around sharing the most intimate thing you can do with another human being, with anybody that you are attracted to. There has to be consequences to that. Everything has pros and cons, okay? The pro would be probably that you get your instant gratification without laying the groundwork for a relationship. So you basically get the reward without any of the work. And the con would obviously be that you're not taking the time to get to know somebody on a deeper level, to know if you're truly compatible with this person. And it leaves you with a sort of emptiness, whether you want to admit that or not, because at the end of the day, all you're really doing is submitting to a purely lustful urge rather than building up towards it by developing a meaningful relationship. And I guess that's enough of my preaching in regards to that. But I just can't see what is appealing about a woman that, or a man, but that's not my interest, that is just willing to, put themselves out there in that way, put their body out there for everybody to view. It sort of takes away the value of it, because it's like if everybody has already been there, it's not really that special anymore now, is it? So the other thing that I found interesting about this whole situation is that these women seem to really dislike their own audience, their own male audience. Now, maybe they don't even realize it because they have this weird belief, but it seems to me that they just want to go and call all these people incels, which is just a stupid term now. It's basically overused to the point that it's lost all meaning. They just call anybody, any man that, disagrees with what they do, they call them an incel. But the funny thing about it is these people wouldn't have a market without the so-called incels, because the only people that would really want to buy attention from these women are the people that aren't really getting any meaningful attention from women in their actual lives. Because if they were, they wouldn't require nudes from random women that they barely know. They'd be too busy enjoying an actual relationship, an actual connection with a real person. Or, you know what, maybe even if you want to throw the relationship out the window, maybe they would be having some sort of physical relationship with an actual woman. So they go and they insult their own audience, And it seems like their audience isn't even aware that they're being insulted because they white knight so hard for these girls that it's incredible. They actually seem to believe that these women are very respectable members of society, that are very deeply caring for these individuals, when it's really just a business to them. They don't care about you. You know, once your wallet empties and you have nothing left, no money left in the bank, they're done with you because you are no longer supporting their business. Sorry for the interruption. Just give me 1 second. 1 second. Gonna step away just for 1 sec. Okay, my apologies for the silence. The dog was up to no good. I had to quickly take care of that. He decided to break into the back room and start eating the cat's food. So there's that. Hey guys, what's going on? So that's where I'm at on that situation. I really don't think that these people are self-aware to the fact that they are insulting their own audience, and that if the white knights were aware of their own situation, that they would realize they're the ones being insulted by these labels, and not the men who happen to see this work as devaluing. Respect anyone who deserves it only, obviously. Yeah, and the problem here is that a lot of these people now think that respect is something that you inherently give to everybody. That doesn't mean, and I disagree with that. I think to a very large degree that respect is earned. Now, a lot of people decide, well, if you view it that way, you're just an asshole. You're endorsing being an asshole to random people. That's not it at all. What I think happens when you meet an individual that you don't know. You don't respect them instantly because you don't know anything about them. Now, you might show them some basic decency and not be rude right off the bat, but that's not the same as respecting someone based on their characteristics and qualities. When you approach somebody new, you kind of approach them with a cautious curiosity, and they kind of mistake that and conflate it with respect, and they believe if you disagree with that it automatically means that you are anti-respect or something like that. It's because they have no argument. I've seen a lot of this where, you know, it happens all the time. Somebody will throw a label out there to shut things down rather than explaining their point of view. Now, there's a difference between, you know, misrepresenting an argument intentionally to win versus just kind of bantering and throwing jokes out there. Not everything is obviously a high intellect debate, but at the same time, I do see a lot of shutting down the conversation just by throwing a label out there, and incel has definitely become one of those. People want respect without doing anything to earn that respect from others. They just want to instantly be worshipped, instantly be blindly praised, all because they have decided to share too much of themselves on social media. That seems really weird to me. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a fantasy world. Yes, entitled would definitely be the word for that. And the ironic part about that is these are the first people to call others entitled. It's like the worst case of projection that I've ever seen. They're just not very self-aware. They accuse everyone else of the things that they do themselves. I don't need to be praised, but the worshipping part sounds nice. Well, if you can manage to prop yourself up as some sort of internet god, you may be able to accomplish this. Have you considered starting a premium Snapchat? Which, by the way, I just can't believe that I'm living in a world where premium Snapchat is even a thing, as if regular Snapchat wasn't bad enough. It's horrible. It's amazing how people expect you to take the dumbest ideas and take it seriously and treat it like it's this really valuable, important thing. There is nothing less important. Well, maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic here, but it's not an important thing. You're not really providing much to the world if your value is showing off your body. It's for quick gratification. It's for a quick buck. It doesn't really do anything to, value yourself. The premium Snapchat thing is as dumb as paying for porn. Yeah, I think it's a big problem, just the way that it kind of changes the attitudes towards sex. And I think a lot of the problems with modern relationships stems from something that they don't want to admit. They don't want to admit that maybe it wasn't the best idea to just decide that sex is something that you can have with anybody at any time. Once you remove the importance of something and you value it less, of course it's easier to misuse it, I guess you could say. That's sort of a weird way to say it in regards to something like sex. And I know a lot of people out there kind of just, they want what they want it in the moment, and they want to basically just call you an incel if you think that maybe it's something that should be a little bit more valuable to you. But like I said, they just don't want to admit that some things are unhealthy for you, even though maybe your instincts or your biology is kind of pushing you towards it. And it's funny because they act like everybody is just, they call people incels, right? But then they act like everybody is entitled to have sex anytime they want. You kind of can't have it both ways. If you're calling someone entitled for wanting a relationship, don't you think that it's that much more entitled to believe that just because you're a human being with so-called needs that you should be able to have sex anytime you want with, anybody? It's a conflict of ideals, and as usual, they don't see the contradiction because they don't want to see the contradiction. They don't want to admit that maybe they're wrong about some of this stuff. I've been called all kinds of stupid names, my whole life for these attitudes. Prude, stupid traditional thing, and just a bunch of garbage labels that don't really argue the point. And it's because at its core, what they want is just based on desire rather than any kind of reasonable standpoint. Sex for you and you and you. Yeah, one giant party. Also, I think their strategy of calling the critics incels might blow back in their faces, seeing as how 80 to 90% of their audience are incels. Yeah, and I don't know if you were here earlier, but that's exactly what I was saying. It's like they are insulting their audience. And once their audience becomes self-aware of this, if that ever happens, because like I said, the white knight attitude is unfortunately very real, they're going to realize that they're being insulted. Instant gratification is fleeting. Yeah, you may enjoy yourself in the moment, but after the fact, you're going to realize that maybe it's not what you really wanted to be doing, or maybe that you're not left with anything of importance after the fact. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to come to terms with that, because they want to believe that, what they're doing is right. They want to believe that their way of living is justified. And I get that. It's hard to be self-aware about these things sometimes and self-reflect. But it's important to be able to do that because you can never realize your mistakes. You can never grow as a person until you recognize your mistakes. We need to take their fedoras so they can start thinking clearly. We also need to take away their iPhones or whatever so they can stop looking at premium Snapchats. Maybe it would clear their minds a little bit to just get away from it. And you know what's amazing to me? Maybe this is going to be a little bit insulting on my part, but I just don't see a lot of these women that do these things as very attractive. Now, part of that is physical. I don't think a lot of these girls that believe they're attractive enough to pose naked for money really are. And the other part to me is, you know, personality, mentality-wise, where it's like they have no issue doing this. They don't view it as something of importance. I mean, think about this. What type of little girl, you know, when a girl's young, age 5, 6, something like that, when they're dreaming of their future, what kind of girl goes to their parents and says, hey, I want to be a cam girl when I grow up. I want to start a premium Snapchat when I grow up. Does anybody ever dream of that ever? No. No. There has to be something that happens across the course of your life in order to get to that point that you believe that your value is based upon your body, that your value is based upon your looks. And the conflict here is that most of these people are feminists, and they want to tell you that, oh, it's wrong for men to value us on our appearance, but yet they want to be valued for their appearance with a monetary gain involved. You can't have it both ways. Either your appearance is valuable or it isn't. And I think, obviously, a big part of this is growing up socialization. Maybe it's not due necessarily to a trauma, but just kind of the attitudes reflected in modern society when it comes to relationships and sex. You know, you're basically told everywhere that my body, my choice, I can do whatever I want, consequence-free, you know, birth control and protection exists, therefore it's okay if I do this. And some people don't even do it safely. They don't think about these things. And that's why, and this is sort of going to segue into the next little topic, that's why we have things like Midwest Fur Fest or something like that, which is a furry convention. They posted on their Twitter yesterday that they ran out of supplies for HIV testing. There was and I mean, just think about this for a second. Yes, it's a good thing if people are, you know, tested for serious illnesses, obviously. But I thought the furry community had nothing to do with sex, especially according to that CNN article that came out recently. Their statement was basically, furries want you to know that they have nothing to do with sex, but yet for some reason at their convention, they need testing for HIV. Do they not see the disconnect here? And just a thought. Like I said, safety is important, but just a thought here. Maybe it wouldn't be so necessary if people were more careful with their life choices and who they chose to share those things with. But nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to, and of course when I say nobody, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic again. They don't want to consider that they have some level of personal responsibility in all this. And that is mind-blowing to me. That's why you have people so crazy when it comes to, like, the birth control, to where they even see things like abortion as a form of birth control. Well, I don't want this, so I should be able to do whatever I want because it's my body, it's my choice. Yeah, it was also your body, your choice when you fucking laid down and did what you did without being careful enough to prevent that from happening, when you have every method at your disposal to make sure something like that doesn't happen. Now, I understand accidents exist. I understand that The whole rape thing exists, but such a small portion of those situations are due to rape. I think the percentage was very, very low. I want to say like somewhere between 1% and 3%, but I don't want to say without being sure. We need to start slapping hoes again. This didn't happen when hoes got 5 in the face. Yeah, what happened to the pimps there? I really don't. I also really don't like the implication that because you don't have some sort of inherent respect for this type of stuff that you dislike women. It sort of implies that in order to be a woman, you have to agree with this narrative. You have to agree with this sort of lifestyle. And if you have ever encountered a real live woman throughout your life, you'll know that there are some out there that don't believe these things. It kind of reminds me of this podcast on Twitch that a friend of mine linked me to last night. And they were arguing about feminism. And here's the hilarious part. What you had was a bunch of, soy-filled men arguing with the women on the podcast in defense of feminism. And the women were actually arguing against it, saying things, arguing against the wage gap, arguing against the convenience of equality narrative. And what I mean by that when I say convenience of equality is that feminists expect equality only when it comes to things that they want. They expect equality in fields that they believe women should be in, but they don't expect equality when it comes to the dirty jobs. They don't expect... Yeah, we're not all idiots. Exactly. And that's what I feel like. It's very disingenuous to just assume that because someone is a woman, they think a certain way. It's the same way that, to me, it's very disingenuous for them to think, well, just because that's a man, they have a certain attitude. Obviously, there are differences between men and women, and there are shared commonalities, but at the end of the day, everybody has a different personality and their own ability to think, but that seems to be less and less prevalent as time goes on, unfortunately, which is really kind of sad to me. Feminist allies are all creeps. Yeah, these guys were definitely creeps. There was one guy that considered himself... I'm misgendering him right now, by the way, because he considered himself a gender, and it was just so obviously a guy. It was this big, fat pig with a paste-on looking beard who looked like a thumb. It blows my mind that people actually take it seriously. Like, oh yeah, this isn't a guy. This is a gender. What is that? You can't not... Oh, boy. All right. I'm beginning to think, and bear with me here, I'm beginning to think that gender isn't even real the more that these people push the social construction idea. Because I believe that they're trying to overcome sex, the concept of biological sex, by creating this narrative that there's this concept of gender, and whatever you feel is what it is. It's not based on an aspect of your birth. It's absurd. It's crazy to me that we're at a point that we actually have to pretend, and you're treated like the crazy one for not pretending that somebody isn't what they are. There is only biological sex, and there are only two sexes. Yeah, and that's sort of like where I'm at here. It really seems like gender is just this arbitrary label that has become a replacement for personality. And there's no value to it because it cannot be defined in a meaningful way anymore. And the whole transgender idea from the get-go just reinforces the idea of binary gender, or binary sex for that matter. I personally use those terms interchangeably, so I actually meant to say sex there. Because it bases somebody's identity on the fact that they feel like they are the opposite of what they actually are. And the way that they identify themselves in that way is always by defaulting to some sort of stereotypical representation of what they perceive a man or woman to be. You can't tell me that certain things aren't gendered and then in the same breath turn around and use those as the reason why you feel like you're trans. It's crazy. Just think of the animals. We gender them without consent and needs to stop now. I mean, just think of the animal kingdom. There's no... Well, at least with like mammals and things of that nature, obviously there are some exceptions where, you know, there's asexual reproduction or whatever, but that seems to be a sort of primitive leftover. But even in the animal kingdom, it's majority just there are male animals, there are female animals, and they mate to produce offspring. Human beings are the only people, or the only type that has invented this concept that goes beyond that, because, I guess because they don't want to feel trapped in some sort of identity. Obviously, I don't like to be pigeonholed either, but just because I happen to be male, that doesn't mean that I can't be the individual person that I want to be. And they sort of see their birth, aspects of their birth as some sort of trap, and they have to come up with ways to justify escaping it in order to seem more interesting than they actually are. And it's a disturbing mindset to me, because it actually just reinforces the ideas that they rail so hard against. And to me, the equality thing is really a myth, okay? People should obviously, in a civilized society, people should obviously have equal rights. But to say that all people are inherently equal is one of the greatest delusions of all time. Some of us are better than others at different things, and that should be okay. That should be encouraged. You shouldn't be forcing people into something because you believe there should be some equal representation of things in certain fields. None of that matters. You should be nurturing people's either natural or learned skills in order to produce the best possible person that they can possibly be. It doesn't make sense to me to go against what somebody truly wants in order to just create this illusion of an equal society. If you want an equal and free society, all you can do is you can have your equal rights, and you can give people the freedom to pursue nearly whatever it is that they want to, you know, within the bounds of reason, obviously. I think we're starting to break down those bounds of reason and go well beyond that, but it started off as a decent idea. You know, I've always defended the concept of freedom, but then sometimes I see just the craziest shit, and I'm like, has freedom gone too far? There's just no happy medium. I think we're starting to go to such an extreme because people are so comfortable. People are so, and to use their own terminology, privileged in these first world societies that they have to invent problems. I mean, me personally, I've never had a shortage of real problems, so I feel like I live in a different world than where these people come from, because it seems like they're just searching for ways to be a victim of something. They're searching for this sort of, I don't know, this sort of special meaning, not realizing that the average person, you know, somebody that works the jobs that nobody else really wants to do, actually provides a great service to society in the sense that it allows the people that are trying to pursue so-called greater things that luxury by doing the things that nobody else wants to do, by doing, you know, the fast food work or the janitorial work or sanitation and things like that. It allows for the people who want to pursue other avenues to do that because those aspects of the social hierarchy are taken care of. So it actually kind of bothers me when people sort of want to say, well, oh, you have to respect all this sex work and stuff, but then they go ahead and call people losers because, you know, they work at Burger King or they're a janitor or something like that. It's like, well, do we respect work or do we not? I don't feel like it should be that selective, because if you really want to make an argument of value, the people that are providing those services provide way more than somebody who's just showing off their body. The problem is the white man science is wrong. It's all fake history written by pale devils. Oh, geez. The white devil isn't giving them all the necessary information. That is the only reason and nothing else. Yeah, and that's really absurd that we're getting to the point, I guess we're already there, and maybe we've been there for a while, where people just want to only pursue the safe reasoning, the safe science or the safe discoveries. They don't want to push the envelope anymore and, maybe discover something that goes against the narrative that, they try to claim it would be used as a hateful weapon. But if you really think about it, if you care about these groups of people and you believe that they're in true need of help, then maybe discovering the actual reasons for why these problems exist would be the best way to help them. Now, you might have some people that will use these things for nefarious purposes, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue them in order to actually provide something of value. Anybody could go ahead and use anything for their own evil purposes. I respect all those that work, but I don't believe someone that flips burgers should make as much as a more physically demanding job. No, I also agree that, there should be differences in monetary compensation based on the jobs. So I'm definitely not one of those people that's like, well, everybody deserves the same sort of pay. That's crazy to me. And that's when the feminist ideology or the social justice shit with, like, everyone, equal pay. It's like, yeah, okay, equal pay for the same job. What about different jobs? You're basically implying that these are the same, the same type of work when they're very different. There's obviously different pressures, different tasks, different levels of skill required to do them. You can't just go and say, well, I deserve equal pay for this man, even though I'm in a different position than this man. It's stupid. Sad thing is that we probably would have cured homo and transsexuals by now if crazies weren't normalizing them. I guess as inappropriate as it would be to say, I really think that there should be a so-called cure to the trans problem just by extension of the fact that there are so many attempted suicides. And you're not going to get me to believe that trans people have it worse in society than the rates that were in, like, Nazi Germany for the Jews. That's insane. What? What are you talking about? Some of these people lead the most free lives they're ever going to be able to live. They would never leave the US or Canada, or I guess maybe even the UK, to go to another country because they know that, for the most part, in other places in the world, their lifestyle would not be accepted. And yet they want to sit here and act like they're so oppressed by this society. It's bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Transsexuality is a mental disease. I mean, how can you argue it's anything other than that? You believe that you're something other than you actually are. And this seems to be the only mental disease where... Thank you for the follow, Thorgrex. This seems to be the only mental disease where it's enabled rather than treated. And they'll make the claim that, well, we are treating it by, giving people their hormones, their surgery. Oh man, I love that goblin. I have that image saved on my PC, but I love that it's an emote now. That's amazing. They want to claim that they're treating these people properly and that this is the way to help them, the best way to help them. But maybe it's the only method that exists because no other avenues are allowed to be explored. Everything else gets shut down as hateful. It's mind-boggling to me how you can claim to care about people, and yet you don't care enough to explore possibilities that you may disagree with. And to me, that just shows me that they don't care about these groups of people. All they do is use them as political weapons. They want them to have a certain mindset so that, they can get votes, they can guilt people, they can ostracize people that don't follow their ideology by claiming that it's some sort of human rights issue and push all of these so-called bigots out, never stopping to realize that at the end of the day, they're basically the definition of bigotry themselves. And I don't want to hear that stupid argument of that it was like tolerating intolerance isn't tolerance or something like that. It's like, do you realize how easily that could be manipulated and turned around for the so-called nefarious purposes that you want to avoid by shutting down all these avenues of discussion? Of course they don't. Of course. Because right now they're on the right side of history. It's all working in their favor. Nothing could possibly go wrong. What could possibly go wrong? And I think we're seeing what could go wrong. They're sort of... They're afraid. Because if you weren't scared of ideas, if you were so sure that you're correct in your mindset, your ideology, then you wouldn't have to remove other opinions from the discourse or the platforms. You would be able to let them shine, in the sunlight, in the spotlight, and let people decide for themselves what they want to believe. But the reason they're concerned about this, the reason they want to shut down all this, all the counter narratives, all the alternative ways of thinking, is that deep down, they must know that there's something to it. I'm going to preheat the ovens to save some time. Oh boy. There we go. Yeah. So that's where I'm at on that. Oh, and speaking of the trans situation, I came across this crazy story where there's a child, I believe it's in Texas, if I'm not mistaken, and he's like 6, and the parents are split up. His name is James, I believe, and there's even like a website dedicated to saving him from this. And his mother is trying to convince everybody that he's trans, and that by 8 years old, he's going to go on hormone therapy. And so what does this parent do to get confirmation of this? Well, she renames him Luna. What the fuck is this? Like, you play Lunar Silver Star Story or something? No, I won't give them that level of quality. This is such a fucked story. I can't believe that you would go this far to mess up your own child's life. It's disturbing to me. And this is a consequence of treating this as though it's normal. Because rather than, if this was even true, which it's not from the evidence presented, there's no way this kid thinks he's actually a girl. But if it were true and he thought he was, wouldn't the proper course be to teach him that, no, James, you were born as a boy. Here's why you were born as a boy. It's okay to have interests that divert from the stereotypical idea of what constitutes a boy, but that doesn't make you something other than what you are. But instead, we have warped the idea of what constitutes man and woman and devalued it and basically placed, no meaning on those concepts anymore. They've completely removed any meaning from it. And that's why people can just flip-flop, I'm a man, I'm a woman, and base it on some sort of whim. So what's happening here is they're doing the social transitioning where, they dress him up as a girl and stuff. The father's against this because when the boy is with the father, he just acts like a normal boy. There's witnesses that, know the father and are around the kid, and they could attest to this. But what does the mother do? They go to one of these gender therapists. And now, riddle me this. If you go to a gender therapist, D-Person, thanks so much for the donation. If you go to a gender therapist, what do you think they're going to find? Could it be a gender problem? Well, color me surprised. And it's really heartbreaking stuff to know that somebody can just destroy an innocent life like this with no recourse just because it is now the politically correct thing to do to validate every little whim that a person has in life. And it's not even the boy's decision. You know, it's very clearly a situation where the mom, I don't know if she's doing this for political validation. I don't know if she's doing this to fuck with the father in some sick revenge method. I can't say, but what I can say is that it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's disturbing, and it really just goes to show that this woman is not mentally fit to care for another life. If you want to transition something, why don't you go and transition yourself, okay? Leave the kid alone. Raise him to be a valuable adult. Like, there's nothing good that is going to come from this situation. This is what he has ahead of him. 41%. A 41% chance that at some point in his life, he's going to attempt to remove himself from the world. That's what you want for your son? Really? What? It's just, I'll never understand how, maybe in a sense I do understand how we got to this point, but sometimes I just feel like I'm living in a disturbing episode of The Twilight Zone and there's just no way out because the mob has decided. And it's a very vocal mob. I don't think that their numbers are as big as they try to portray themselves as. I think that it's just a very loud group of people that have decided that this is the way things are, and they're going to yell, they're going to scream, they're going to stomp their feet, they're going to claim human rights violations to manipulate and emotionally guilt people into doing things that anyone with half a brain would never do. This is besides the point, but did you know that Kitty legit declared war on Danish police, TRR, and a few others? He even has a drawn map with marked territory. Narcissa has its own citadel. Yeah, I saw that. I did see that last night on the kill stream. I was going to make a joke about the whole Ralph Resort thing. What the fuck is that? I think this guy's just crazy. I don't understand what his issue is, but he needs to get off the stream and just stop it, get some help, as Michael Jordan once said, because he's gone off the rails. I don't know much about the guy, but I've just seen his crazy come out. D&D multi-stream, Carl's wet dream. I don't know, I like unconventional D&D campaigns. Has he actually made some sort of crazy D&D reference, or I wouldn't be surprised. Mommy, wow, I'm transgender now. New Huggies transgender pull-ups in store soon. Oh, man. There's just too much of this stuff going on. And you can't tell me that there is no social influence to this when the numbers of these cases are just increased by insane percentages within the last few years. Like, I remember one claiming there was like a 320% increase in transgender children. You can't tell me there's no influence here. And for the people that, this is what blows me away. It's another contradiction. This is the same group of people that claim socialization is everything, and in the same breath, they want to claim that their ways of life aren't socializing anybody to join them. Are you kidding me? They're just born this way is the biggest lie sold in the 21st century. Yeah, I am beginning to see that. I mean, even they're going back on it in a way because they're saying gender is a choice. Well, if gender's a fucking choice, you're not born that way. You can't choose how you were born. Who is Dazed Illusions? Am I supposed to know who that is? if you can let me know. You know, instead of just spamming, instead of spamming nigger and the link. I'm not going to click on it, though, right now because I don't have any visual aid for everybody, so. I think it's the fag that tries to get banned in all channels. Oh. Well, enjoy that. I don't really care too much about things like that. Hashtag goals. Yeah, when that's your life goal, it's time to aim a little higher, perhaps. Just saying. Kids haven't even fully developed mentally at those ages. It is such cruelty. Yeah, since when did we start taking kids at, you know, at face value with every little thing they say? I mean, kids say some crazy shit. I think I've shared this before, but my oldest sister, she's a few years younger than me, but my oldest sister, when she was a kid, I think she was like 2 or 3 years old, she said some stupid thing like, first I was a boy and then I was a girl. You know, it was just out of nowhere. It was completely random. Guess what she didn't grow up to be? She didn't grow up to be something other than what she is. You know, she has a family, she has kids. She's a she. She's a fully functional female woman, whatever you want to say. Not transgender. Nobody took her seriously when she said that. We're just like, you're being silly. You know, you're a girl. You never... You're not a boy. And she's just fine. But imagine, you know, taking that seriously and then taking the kid to the doctor because of, you know, one silly thing they said, and then they're like, oh, well, must be transgender. That's a very disturbing precedent to set. I believe the brain development thing, I think it's early 20s. I don't remember what age exactly. I'm almost 30 and my father and mother don't take me seriously, but sure, let's believe an 8-year-old male that he is a female. Right? And the thing that nobody seems to be able to explain is, how does somebody who is born a male or born a female, how do they even understand what it feels like to be the opposite gender? How can you possibly know that? I mean, maybe it's a social perception thing, like, oh, I feel more geared towards the way that these people act in a social setting. But even then, that doesn't change your biology. That doesn't mean that you're less of what you were born as. Just act out the way that you perceive yourself to be. You don't have to go through some crazy-ass hormone therapy and surgery to do that. And they try to skew the data in their favor. You know, these people are all about science and stuff, but they never want to admit when something comes out that runs contrary. That's when they decide to label it, oh, it's anti-LGBT, it's anti-gay, it's anti-trans, it's right-wing propaganda. So anything that ever, you know, comes out that doesn't validate their worldview is just completely invalid right from the get-go. It's based on hatred, and that's how they write off anything that doesn't, you know, go with the crowd. It's the greatest tragedy of trannies. What they feel has nothing to do with how the other sex feels. Yeah, it's wild. I mean, you can spam whatever you want, dude, but that doesn't help you any. Also, do you actually think that anybody watches Twitch channels and subscribes and follows based on somebody just spamming in the chat? I think that everybody is still aware that, you know, that's the best way to get ignored. So if that's your channel and you're trying to build an audience, I'm sorry, it's not going to work. All right, so we are moving on from this just miserable story. At what point did sex define who you are? I mean, I don't know. I thought it just defined your, you know, your biological functions. But now it's this whole thing where if you feel a certain way, you're just something else. So again, unfortunately, I can't pull it up on the screen just due to the OBS being a piece of shit. But you know the song "Baby It's Cold Outside"? We're getting into a little bit of holiday cheer here. Well, of course you do. It's an old classic. Well, apparently, it's been pulled from a Cleveland radio station amid the hashtag #MeToo movement. So basically, what they're implying is that it's time to retire this song because it's rape. Yeah, they actually pulled it. So I'll just read a little bit of this here. One local radio station has decided they ought to say no, no, no to the now controversial Christmas song, "Baby It's Cold Outside." It's made up controversy. WDOK 102.1, a Cleveland-based station that exclusively plays Christmas music during the holidays, announced this week the song would be removed from rotation after a listener called to say it was inappropriate amid the Me Too movement. So, one listener, just one person, just one single person complains and says, this is offensive, and we have to pander. We have to cater to that one person. Why? What value does this provide? If I were the radio station, somebody called me and said that okay, don't listen. Hang up. Click. End of story. You have the choice to change the dial on the radio station. Like, who doesn't realize this? So it says, "Baby It's Cold Outside" has been a source of debate for the past few years. Some argue it plays or displays key signs of rape culture. Even if the intentions aren't sinister, it's simply exhausting to be a woman in that situation, wrote USA Today's Mary Nahorniak. Nahorniak, that's pretty funny. In the original score, the male part is written as a wolf and the woman as a mouse. That speaks volumes about male predatory behavior. Many women know what it's like to feel trapped by a man, whether emotionally or physically. In those situations, it doesn't matter how it began or why she wants to leave. It only matters that she wants to go now. These people are insane, okay? The purpose of this song is that the woman actually does want to stay with the man. She is actually interested in him, but she's afraid of the societal repercussions. She's afraid that she will be judged harshly because that's not something that men and women typically did back in those times. Now, I know you're in your big brain society where you got your Tinders and your Netflix and chill, but back in the day, people actually, took the time to court each other before they took that step. So it's so stupid that they can't see the context of the situation. Right, she doesn't want to be called a hoe, plain and simple. But since that is now seen as some sort of societal symbol, they just can't comprehend that somebody wouldn't want to be seen as a whore. Because they think it's a good thing. They think it's okay. They're ignoring the societal shift. Others have countered to say it ought to be considered from a historical standpoint. After all, it was written in the 1940s. Oh, here we go. A time when it would have been a scandal for an unmarried woman to spend the night in a man's house. Exactly. A kind of culture of repression that would forbid this kind of hanging out. Karen Tongson, an English and Gender Studies Associate Professor at the University of Southern California, said last year, the song itself is an effort to furnish female sexuality with a set of excuses as opposed to a coercive song. That's a very surprising take from a Gender Studies Associate Professor. It also says she's an English professor as well, so I don't know. But you do have to, as useless as I see that field, you do have to give props of honesty here. WDOK told a local TV station a poll on the station's website showed a clear majority of listeners. Oh, so they didn't. So I guess after the complaint, they put up a poll, and then people voted to remove it. Ultimately, they argued the lyrics take on a new meaning in 2018. No, they don't. You're changing it with your own personal political interpretation. It really pushed the line of consent. Cleveland Rape Crisis Center president and CEO Sandra Miller told the local TV station. Well, again, color me surprised that a rape crisis center president would have that opinion. The character in the song is saying no, and they're saying, well, does no really mean yes? Because it does. It does in this situation. It's not like he's beating her or something. I think in 2018, what we know is consent is yes, and if you get a no, it means no, and you should stop right there. Imagine how uninteresting of a song that would be. She's like, I really can't stay, and he's like, oh, okay. Song over. It just cuts off. Like, that's it. That's the 2018 version. And you know, somebody actually did do an updated version of the song. They did like a consent version, and it was cringeworthy as all hell. It was embarrassing. Nobody interacts that way in a relationship or a potential relationship. These people are destroying social interactions between men and women. Destroying them. And it's having a real effect on relationships. But nobody cares. They don't care. They believe that their ideology is the most important thing, and they're going to continue to push it regardless of any kind of societal consequence. And that's it. That's it for that article. But it's disturbing that all it takes is one little poll, one little complaint, and it's gone. It's just gone. Removed. Removed from history. Removed from rotation. Got to pretend it doesn't exist because someone somewhere may get offended by something, and that's how we have to live our lives, walking on eggshells for people that just need to grow thicker skin. That's the way it goes. They're going to get so bored when white people disappear. My question is, what kind of racism complaints are they going to come up with when everybody is just mixed in the same color? I'm sure there's still going to be. They don't see it. They think racism is going to disappear. There's still going to be some sort of ism that will divide people. They're ludicrous if they think that they're going to get rid of human instinct completely. It's just the most absurd thing, but that's what happens when you take the social constructionist, I believe it's called, viewpoint, in which everything is just social. You could change it by changing minds. I even saw this fucked up thing where they were basically saying that biological race is not a thing, and it's like, wait a second, people are born looking different with different health conditions and whatnot based on these differences, and you mean to tell me that's not biological? It's so fucked. Acting like other races aren't even more racist. Yeah, there is definitely a lot of that. They love to have this narrative of, white people did everything wrong, but they also completely ignore that the reason they live in this, one of the main reasons they live in the society that they live in is because, obviously, some of those white people decided that everybody deserves to be treated the same. You don't really see that in many other places, now do you? But hey, let's just ignore that. Let's pretend that everybody is what we label them as. That's far more easier than paying attention to reality. And sticking with the Christmas narrative, I realized that was a little bit of a tangent, but we've got another one. This one is titled Xmas Snowflakes. The car is blasted for crazy political correctness after dumping wise men from kids' Christmas service. Church of England Canon Frida Evans asked parents to dress youngsters as wise people instead. Now, anybody who knows the story of the wise men understands that they're called wise men because they're literally fucking men. Like, how are you so stupid that you don't understand? Again, just a little bit of context would create some understanding here. It's not saying that only men can be wise. It's just saying that these people happen to be wise men. But of course, again, ignoring reality in favor of ideology, that's where we're at. It's got to be changed. So, this is somebody from, I guess, the Church of England. Yeah, I read that. Church of England. And what kind of name is Canon? Canon Frida Evans. It's funny because she's changing the canon of the story. Asked parents to dress youngsters from a neighboring primary school as wise people instead. So, but Anita Neal, 49, who has a 10-year-old daughter, said, "You can't change something that's hundreds of years old. They're being silly. Where do you stop?" And Debbie McKinn, 41, who has 3 kids at the school, said, "To be honest, I think it's absolutely stupid. The wise men were men." And this is women. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know who that is spamming. They seem to think that they are, funny, but it is what it is, right? Nobody's watching your shitty Twitch channel. I'm sorry. So it says, "I pray we're not heading for gender-neutral Father Christmas and Jesus. It's getting crazy." Complaints? Well, they've already done the whole... there's been a couple of outlets that have done this. Jesus was transgender. Jesus was queer. Crazy shit like that. I don't even know how to do that in here. I'll be completely honest. I'm way out of the loop on that. All I can see is how to remove messages, but I don't see an option for that. So, can you guys just do ignore? Because I really don't know what the fuck to do. All right, so complaints started after a poster for the children's service on Christmas Eve went up in St. Barnabas Church, Erdington, Birmingham, and on its website. Unfortunately, maybe I'll have to post this to Twitter or something so you guys can see it, but there is a poster here. It says, "Children are invited to come along to the service dressed as angels, shepherds, sheep, or wise people." All right, there you go. All right, so it continues. It said, "Children are invited to come along to the service." Yep, all right, that's the same line. Canon Frida said in a statement, "They are small children and they determine who they want to be. Whether they are boys or girls, they make the choice." But yeah, but you don't... When people say that, when people say that you determine who you want to be, they don't mean you can decide upon your biology. They mean, like, do you want to be a firefighter or do you want to be an office employee? Like, what the fuck? Sheep seems appropriate. Yeah, it does. I would be the asshole who says, "What? No wise man." Using a sock account to spam and get yourself modded to ban it. Well played. Do you know who that was? I mean, do you think that was somebody we should know of? I'm sure that there's going to be some fucking stupid asshole that's like, Scratch Point is against free speech. He's banning people in his chat. And I'm just like, all right, well, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You really think it's him? I don't even know this dude. Like, what the fuck would be the point of that? I'm going to go and I'm going to see something real quick before we continue reading that. Is that dude online? Yeah, he is. Looks like some sort of live stream, though, that was, like, outside. He spurgs out on all channels. Is he really that mad that I have, like, 7 more viewers? It's not that much, dude. What the fuck? No, just joking. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But to be completely honest, I just, I defer from doing that. Like, I completely understand, though, like, why you guys wouldn't want to deal with spam, because it completely ruins any kind of interaction. So, I get it. And, he got to say his part. He fucking posted the same thing like 300 times. So, if he had something else to say, I'm sure he would have said it. So it said, in fact, the early biblical word would have been Magi, which means followers of Zoroaster, so it is later translations which use the wording. Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that they were men. Oh boy. According to the church website, the vicar was ordained 20 years ago. Or is it vicar? I don't even know. I've not really seen that word very often. Following a multifaceted background working in politics. Church of England, Birmingham said she would not be making any further comment. Well, of course not. She got called. Is it Visser? Okay. Yeah. Damn. It's just, it's absurd how crazy it's gotten, where people feel like they need to protect others from this bullshit. What does that do? What does that help? If you can't handle that somebody in a story wasn't the same gender as you, doesn't that say more about you than the story? Doesn't that, demonstrate that maybe you need to grow up or accept that not everything is about you? Was it spamming a Twitch link? Yes. Yes, it was. I don't know why, though. I mean, fuck Twitch. It's actually kind of amazing that he's in here saying, like, nigger and child molester, and he's spamming Twitch, because the terms of service would erase your channel for doing that. Even though he did it off the platform, they would delete his channel for that behavior. How retarded do you have to be to not understand that? At least if you, at least if you're doing a stream me link spam, okay, maybe you could get away with it. But Twitch will ban your ass. They're ridiculous. They have that rule where they, like, if you fuck with somebody off of the platform and, they get reported, you could still get banned. That's why I kind of left Twitch. I was there for a while, just doing gaming streams. And first of all, it's really hard to break in because, Twitch has just saturated, and a lot of people have decided, like, this is my big streamer, this is the person I'm going to support. So they spend a lot of time, watching those, and those big streamers where it's their career, they stream like 10 hours a day, some of them. So you can't really, you can't build an audience that way. I like this because I've had some people wander in that were just like, oh, never heard of you before. I'm following, I'm subscribing. Okay, cool, great. That's awesome. You don't see that much on Twitch, and I really don't like the contradiction of their standards. More like Thaudit. Yeah, that's where I'm going with that, where it's like the defenders of the soy, the staff at Twitch is like ass-kissing all the Twitch whores. I really feel as though they're probably like on some kind of deal getting their premium Snapchat for free or some shit. It's like, you defend me, you prevent me from being banned, and then I'll unicorns are manly, the horn is for stabbing. What about narwhals? They have a nice little unicorn horn there. This is completely unrelated, but I remember some TV show back when I was a kid, and there's only like one scene that I can picture from it, and it's the very intro of the episode of whatever show it is, and it's like a man on the beach, and he's sort of disillusioned, and he sees the horn sticking out of the water, and it's a narwhal, but he like thinks it's a unicorn or something, and then he like passes out, and the people that are the main characters in the show find him, and there's like a whole episode about it. But I can't remember what the fuck it was. It was like some sort of, it wasn't a sitcom necessarily, but it was some sort of drama. And it's just completely lost on me on what that show is, and I hate that I can't remember it, but I have this very vivid sort of memory of the concept of the episode. It's really weird. It's almost to the point where like I've searched for it just based on those vague descriptions, and I can't find it, and I'm almost at this point like, did I just fucking dream its existence? That's bad because I've never had to ban someone. Pretty much all the old guard streamers that streamed at me were banned from Twitch. More thinking that they're trading sexual favors like those journalists and game designers. Yeah, I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised. No slurs, please. I know that. I know where that quote comes from. And it's so, that situation is very funny to me because there's that Imager collection of tweets that they made in the past. It was like 4 years ago maybe or so, and they're using plenty of slurs, and it seems like their belief system has completely flip-flopped. And so it's just like they go and try to get those dudes banned from Games Done Quick, and successfully, of course. And it's amazing because you see the hypocrisy. Like, they did the same thing, but then they want to be like, well, just because I flip-flop on my views, now I'm punishing everybody else who may have somewhat similar convictions. Well, trannies don't know what they are. Yeah, I think it's, like, obviously you can change your viewpoints, but you would think that if you started out that way and you adapted over time, that you would be more understanding of people who may think the way you used to. Which, by the way, I don't even think those guys were that crazy in their beliefs. It was a complete spurg out over nothing. And it's kind of crazy to me how all of these companies just virtue signaling is their main thing. And they don't see that it actually fucks their viewpoints or their audience. Because most people don't think that way. Most people don't like that you are removing people for off-platform behavior. It's like they want this complete control over others. I even think that when it comes to places of employment, as long as your account is not a company account, as long as you're not like advertising your job on a daily basis, your job shouldn't be able to fire you for what you post on social media as long as it's not like criminal. Like if you go out and, you do something, you assault somebody or whatever, maybe the company could say, well, we don't really want to work with a guy like that. But for offensive posts on social media, get out of here. That's just so stupid. Wait, what is this, Senran Kagura, oh, jeez. So they're going and censoring this shit, too? I guess I'm not surprised because Sony is just fucking themselves over big time. I guess they don't want money anymore. Which is... it's hilarious. Nintendo is rising to the top. Nintendo is understanding that... finally understanding that people don't want to see their games censored. There's a rating system in place for a reason, folks. If a game is, too offensive for you, or, you're not mature enough to see the content, you could simply not purchase it. But the attitude of these people, the hubris, is they want to go beyond that. Not only do they want to decide what they're going to view, but they want to decide what you're going to view. Which is just all kinds of pathetic. Why do you give so much of a fuck if somebody is playing a game that you don't like? I did not understand censoring when there's a rating system. Exactly. Me neither. It drives me insane. It's like game censorship. It shouldn't even be a thing considering there's a rating system. Because technically, people of a certain age aren't supposed to be playing those games. Now, I know a lot of people don't follow that. Me personally, I played some games that were considered mature for, my age when I was a kid, but it didn't fuck me up as far as I know. I've never never acted out over a video game. Well, aside from, maybe yelling at the screen once or twice, but it's a bit different than going out into the world and doing something simply because you saw, something represented in fiction. I assume it's something along the lines of stop liking what I don't like as to why they want to shut it down for everyone else. Probably, most likely. It's really all about control for these people. They are obsessed with the idea of having power over others. And it's ironic because, they're the same ones that accuse others of having all the power. Are you serious? I'm glad this didn't show up on screen because I clicked the link. How is this allowed? All the replies to this are so fucking embarrassing, too. So, basically, it's just a naked chick in the shower. It's a video. And the guys are just, drooling. Someone's like, I like it that way. And they have, like, the hard eyes. Wow, amazingly beautiful body. So sexy, it's unreal. And he has, like, eggplant emojis. Oh, it's just the saddest behavior. Does anybody have any kind of restraint at all? I mean, look, all right, sure, I get it. You're attracted to someone, but I can't understand why people make those types of comments because she's never going to pay attention to you, dude. She's never going to care. All you're doing is inflating her ego. There is nothing you can say to her that no man hasn't said before when it comes to her appearance. And it gets to the point where they get a compliment like that and they don't even say thank you anymore because they're just like, I know. Because everybody's telling them. All day, every day. It's like compliments have been completely destroyed by this this whole entire market. You know, you can't say something that could be interpreted as meaningful to somebody because now everything's out there and, you know, you could just comment on it all the time. What is this dancing in the starlight? I'm sorry I can't show this on screen, guys. It's like, oh fuck, there's an ad. I wish the OBS thing would start working again. I'm not sure what happened. I've been searching reasons for, you know, what the problem is, but I have not found an adequate answer. So what is the TLDR on that review? Did they have some kind of issue with a certain aspect of it? Because it's pretty long. Oh, I see. But okay, here, I think I found it. So there are also a few shortcomings. This is for that Persona 5 dance game, I guess. There are also a few shortcomings in Dancing in Starlight when it comes to presentation. Life Will Change, an empowering song with infectious conviction, is paired to a fairly cheesy music video. But what's much worse is that the female cast members, who are also high school students, get over-sexualized in the last surprise music video, which is some sort of bizarre burlesque show that's out of touch and wholly unnecessary. Oh, come on. It's like the lines between fantasy and reality have been completely fucking warped. Just, come on, man. Like, these niggas have kiddie drag shows, though. Exactly. They have no problem with doing that. Japs have a thing for schoolgirls. Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't necessarily always mean young girl, though. I mean, they have cosplay of, it's like they enjoy the schoolgirl aesthetic, the uniform. And don't tell me that's not a thing. Like, there's girls that I've seen in the U.S. that are like, I love a man in uniform, and they only fuck military guys or whatever. Like, that's a thing worldwide. There's a certain interest in a certain look. Okay, it doesn't necessarily always mean the age is inappropriate, but in a video game, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, maybe I would probably draw the line at fucking like kids and shit. That's pretty messed up. But, you know, teenagers, what are they, like 16, 17? It's probably nothing. First of all, given today's society, it's probably nothing they aren't doing in real life, unfortunately. And second, it's not real. When somebody tries to bring up the age of the character thing, all I can really think is like, well, first of all, it's a drawing. It represents someone with a completely developed body. You wouldn't really know that they are 17 unless you were specifically told. So really a drawing is only as old as the first time the artist drew it, right? I mean, that's the technical age of a character. But I understand there's like a fictional representation age, obviously. I know it's different. I'm not saying there's no difference, but I'm saying that people are attracted to specific looks. You can't fuck the drawing. Yeah, I mean, that's true. You obviously you can't. I'm sure some people try, considering the world that we're living in. But generally speaking, no, you can't. But Lateralus, elaborate. I'm just curious what your viewpoint is, or what you interpreted mine as. Because basically, all I'm saying is that, you know, you've got people that are attracted to specific styles of dress. That's it. Not that it's exactly the same. Because obviously, you know, military people are of age. Not with that attitude. Yeah, it's I just don't like treating fiction as though it has to be completely in line with what's acceptable in reality, because one of the main draws of fiction is obviously that you are able to do and experience things that you could otherwise not do or see in the real world. And that's important for a lot of people because first of all, I think it's good for your imagination. If you're into the school uniform, it's more than likely the same piece of shit who stares at a girl walking to school. I mean, that's entirely possible. I'm not going to completely deny that. But there are a lot of models that are of age that, that dress in that style, at least when it comes to the Japanese models. So, I mean, I don't necessarily... I get where there's like a creep factor, totally. But, if the person that's actually dressing that way is of age, then what can you really do? The main draw is that it's fiction. Yeah, like you don't always want to be force-fed real life in your media. And that's something these people just can't separate. They don't want to see that, there is a degree of separation here. You don't have to hold everything that is made up to societal standards. Now a nurse uniform. There we go. How about the bunny girl? That's a good one. Catharsis. I'm tired of that narrative. I'm tired of that, fiction has to follow reality. We can't, we can't go and play pretend for a little while. But, it's perfectly acceptable to play pretend that, you're a man or you're a woman when you're the completely opposite. I'm all over it, even though in reality most real nurses have cankles. I guess it's those long hours that, they can't have that exercise regimen and just eat whatever, right? We'll give them an excuse, sure. I hope to God Laura Loomer never dresses up as anything ever. You mean she wasn't already dressed up as a goblin? FGC okay with DOA guys and thongs, but no skin on females. Oh, yeah. FGC is full of trans, no real girls. What is up with that? Have you noticed, like, even the Games Done Quick thing, it's overrun by those types of characters? And when I say characters, I don't mean fictional. I mean the actual players. Yeah, but that bothers me with the Dead or Alive stuff. It's like, you realize that both of those are pandering to a demographic. One obviously to women, the other obviously to men. Sure, you could throw in the gay people if you want, but the majority of people aren't that. The best USA FGC player is gay, furry, black. Are you serious? Man, some of the GDQ clips are so on YouTube. They're so embarrassing. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there's the one where that guy, he's like talking the whole time, and he ends up pissing the guy playing the game off, and he's just like, will you just shut up? And then there's another guy that I think he tries to like smell somebody's seat. It's the most disturbing thing you could come up with. Just like they did with Marvel. First they invade, then they demand once they have enough pull. Well, yeah, it's happening. It happens with everything. They go into these things and they start to try to overrun it. And it's funny to me because nobody wants to hear this, but, these are the people that if you went back 10, 20 years, they were making fun of the people that had these hobbies. And now they want to pretend that they were always involved, they were always fans, they're the true fans, and they want to dictate how the so-called community acts and thinks and what they get to enjoy. That guy hit a point when he said they were just doing it for the dopamine hit. Definitely. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. All right, I know you won't be able to see it, but I'll open it. Oh man, what has the world come to? I wonder if he got his HIV test this year. Did you see the vid of the two? Oh yeah, I did. That was actually absolutely hilarious. I actually commented on Twitter. I quote tweeted the dude that posted the video reporting them. I mean, how sad do you have to be afraid of banter in a video game, in an online game? Like, why don't you just mock them back? Why do you have to report them to the company and try to get them banned? And the fact that the company went and did it, I mean, it really just goes to show how pathetic we are here. We did nothing, guys. Now we are being punished. Next Thursday is Game Awards Cuck Feast. Or Fest, maybe. The guys who got banned for killing the feminist NPC? No, this was Fallout 76. Oh, wait, is that RDR? Or Fall... Wait a minute. Are we talking about the RDR one, or are we talking about the Fallout 76 one? Because there's one where they go against the whole... They called themselves, like, Eliminate the Gays or something like that, and then they made a whole bunch of wisecracks at the guys that were playing. And they killed them. And they're like, it's a homophobic attack. It's like, how the fuck... How is it an attack? You realize you're not actually getting hurt when your character dies, right? I mean, that's how crazy... That's how crazy we've gone. It's like they just don't see the difference. And really, I mean, you're in a post-apocalyptic world, right? What do you think is going to happen in that sort of thing? Well, what did they do? Step into to Sword Art Online? Less tentacles and incest, though, I guess. They paid $60 to get banned. I would demand my money back. Yeah, they should. Somebody responded to me saying that they should do a chargeback. I completely agree. They should. They report to the credit card company that the company decided to basically steal from them. Glad he did not apologize for it. Yeah, that was nice to see. That was really nice to see. I think you should never ever apologize for that bullshit. It's like, because doing that is basically admitting that it was wrong, and it's not. It's a joke. And if you can't take it, that's your problem. All right, let me check this out here. Okay, what else did I have on the agenda here? Oh, okay. So this sort of relates to the whole fictional topic, so I guess it's a decent segue. There's an anime that's out. I haven't watched it. It's called like Zombieland Saga or something like that. It doesn't really look like something I'd be interested in, so I haven't checked it out yet. But hearing this kind of bullshit makes me even less so, just because I hate it when people prop up these things as sort of a mouthpiece for them, a representation argument. And man, it drives me crazy that people even believe in the representation narrative. Yeah, so that's the thing. It's like they're trying to claim it's like it's trans representation when from what I understand contextually it's probably not, and it was played for the purposes of comedy. But there's somebody that actually got published on the Crunchyroll website, and I guess we shouldn't be surprised because Crunchyroll is a piece of garbage. But this is the title of the article. To Zombieland Saga's Lily Hoshikawa, the best trans girl I've seen in anime. All transgender characters in anime should be more like Lily Hoshikawa. This is by Carlos Catorniga? I don't know, whatever. It's actually a letter to the character. Like, this is how they wrote it. They have written it. There we go. Dear Lily Hoshikawa, idol anime shows have never really been my thing, but Zombieland Saga seemed too cool not to check out. Then I found out you were a transgender girl. Knowing that you're trans and living your afterlife to its fullest really struck a chord with me. I guess it was the D chord. After all, I'm a trans person too, and I feel we have a lot in common. Imagine my shock. Learning about your origins story was really interesting. Becoming a child actress to make your father happy was a sweet gesture, and you definitely stood out as a drama star. I was sad to see that you died and were separated from him, but I'm glad you were able to reach out to him after becoming a zombie idol. It's wonderful to know that your dad is still there for you. Is this real life? What? But what truly tugged at my heart was how strongly I could empathize with your trans experience. The trans experience. You were born as Masao Go and assigned male at birth. Okay, first of all, male is not an assignment. It's just what you are. When you became a star, you changed your name and were more comfortable identifying as Lily, the actress. Becoming a man terrified you, and you even died over finding a small stub of peach fuzz on your face. And you mean to tell me that that's not some sort of joke? As a zombie, you can remain who you are as Lily, and you even scold others who dare to use your dead name, the name you discarded after your transition. I was so moved by your firmness in your gender identity. I certainly could have used someone like you as a role model when I was a kid. And this is entirely the fucking problem. Later, punk. These people act like seeing a character that is like them or loosely like them, because I, vaguely sharing some sort of like arbitrary identity marker is not representation, but we'll get into that a little bit more. But they seem to think that they require a quote-unquote role model that basically matches them in every way. Well, first of all, the only thing you're really relating to is the so-called trans experience. Obviously, you're not a zombie, so it's not complete representation. You're basically just kind of, cherry-picking the identity that you believe represents you. Their whole identity is a mental disease. It's just... I grew up as a closeted trans person and was also assigned male at birth, so I resonated almost immediately with your dysphoric struggle. When I hit puberty, I shared your encroaching despair with hair growing where it didn't used to. I was deathly afraid of my voice dropping and sounding more masculine. The changes that I knew would start happening with my body made me feel uneasy in my own skin. Do you see how, like, everything is just so warped to be made about them? It's just pure narcissism. They take the story that somebody else wrote and they say, this is just like me. I relate to this. It's okay to relate to characters, but you shouldn't fucking base your identity, like the validation, the validity of your identity, based on whether or not fictional characters that you feel represent you exist within a story. If your existence is that fragile, how are you even real? I've been watching anime for as long as I can remember, and I never really found a character I could relate to over my gender troubles. That's why I'm so grateful to know that you're here. When people say shit like this, like, oh, I can't relate, why don't they go over to fanfiction.net and write their own self-insert story? Like, they always expect other people to provide this for them. These days, I'm settled a little more comfortably as a trans person, but I saw a lot of myself in you. Yeah, I bet you did. And the turmoil we shared. You gave me a little push to be more expressive with my gender identity. I'll always appreciate that. I wouldn't claim that anime has been completely devoid of transgender representation, but I may go so far as to say that your story set a new standard for it. You may be the tiniest idol in Fran Cho-Cho, or Choo-Choo, or whatever. I think it's Cho, yeah. But you stand tall as a proud trans girl that my younger, more closeted self would have appreciated. You protect your identity, accept no substitutes, and do your best to live happily ever after, albeit as a zombie. If anyone working on an anime wants to include a tasteful story about trans people in the future, they should look no further than your wonderfully inspiring tale as a guideline on what to do right. Sincerely, your newest fan. How? How does this happen? What kind of life do you have to lead to think that, oh, if I don't see myself in somebody else's writing, I'm not represented properly, and therefore people aren't respecting my identity? It doesn't even make any sense. And this is like, these are the people that want to posture about empathy. Well, empathy is the ability to put yourself into the shoes of someone else, to see their emotional perspective despite having not gone through their specific struggle. So I feel like people that complain about representation and an inability to relate to characters that are quote-unquote not like them are actually the people that are admitting that if you're some kind of marginalized identity, that you lack any empathy. You can't understand something unless it speaks directly to you. It's bullshit. It's hypocrisy. And I've never... Their whole argument is always like, you don't need to see yourself represented because you're always represented. I've never felt that there was a fictional character that was 100% in line with who or what I am. Okay? I don't look to fiction to validate my existence. Now, obviously, there are themes and character struggles and whatnot that a person can relate to, but it's not the basis for your existence. And if you don't see it there, it doesn't mean that you're somehow less of a person in real life. They take it way too far. Not everybody watches TV shows or reads books or plays video games to see themselves. In fact, most people do it to be something other than what they can actually be in real life. So to claim that representation is like one of the main points of fictional works, and they kind of just want it, what they want is propaganda. They don't want meaningful stories. They just want stories that push their ideas of the way people and the world should be, rather than having any kind of real character development or even meaningful narratives. Because all of the writing that they produce is just the most ham-fisted, in-your-face, agenda-pushing drivel. And that's why, when they create something of their own, it usually gets shut down or canceled because nobody wants it. And that's the reason that they go after other people's works, because they realize that the only way to, push their agenda to the masses is to infiltrate and take over the works of other people, which, if you're talking about respect, it's massively disrespectful to steal somebody else's efforts. Yeah, go woke, get broke. There we go. But that's pretty much all I had for this stream. Thank you guys for listening in. Thank you for all the interactions, and including the spam chat. That was entertaining for like 2 minutes at least. But yeah, I will, as usual, advertise on Twitter the next time I decide to go live with one of these. I won't make any promises as to when that will be, but keep your notifications on and whatnot, and you will never miss a show. Thank you, and enjoy your Saturday, guys.